Hello everyone. I think we're live. I'll wait until somebody tells me audio and everything is working. I know for pretty much certain I feel like I forgot something major that I needed to do before the live stream. I have no idea what it was yet, so I'm sure we'll find that out sometime soon. Okay, looks like everything is good. Tonight we are painting a shark. I don't know what kind of shark this is. You guys will have to let me know. The reference photo is over at my website. Link is in the video description if you want to paint along with me. But we are painting a shark. I am going to be working on a Fredericks. This is a watercolor canvas board. And the reason that I go with a watercolor canvas board, obviously I'm not working in watercolor. This is an acrylic painting video, but this canvas is super, super smooth. This was provided to me by Fredericks, so thank you for that. But they were already the only canvas I used, so there you go. Or the only brand I used, I should say. I really like their watercolor canvas board. The blue label and the Belgian linen are my absolute favorites. And the Convexo canvas because of the shape. Anyway. So with this one, it is really, really smooth, and that is why I'm going with this. And I've already pre-painted a coat of black acrylic paint on this so that I'm not fighting the white of the canvas as I go. And hopefully it's dried all the way. I painted it a few hours, but I didn't hair dry it. It feels questionable, so we'll see. But this one is an 8x10, and as always, if you are a US resident, you can bid on this one. The link to bid is in the video description. Starting bid is $65, and that will include shipping. I apologize for those of you who are not outside or who are outside of the US. It's a whole shipping drama trying to get paintings to people. It takes like 6 weeks for stuff to go overseas, and it's a whole thing. Also, we already, oh look, they don't even know. They're not expecting it. Thank you, Rob. I'm saying it quietly. Thank you, Robin, so much for the, here we go. They're gonna see. For the super chat. I knew we've got them well trained. Thank you, Robin. The boys, thank you for starting the night off with their favorite. They seriously, they love Wednesdays. They know when I'm getting ready. As soon as I start setting up, they both go and lay in their beds and wait. It's our favorite night of the week. Oh, tasty. Don't chomp my fingers, sir. That's rude. Okay, go lay down. Lay down. Lay down. Good boys. All the way down. Slowest race dogs ever. Okay, so this one, it is on a canvas board. No, I'll actually paint it right side up. There's Fredericks written on the back. It doesn't actually matter if it's right side up or not. That's framed. You would never see it, but it drives me crazy when I realize I painted it upside down. I don't know why, just little thing. Anyway, this will pop into any standard 8x10 frame. And one of the things that I like, especially with this size, with the canvas boards, if you've used like generic stuff from Michaels or Hobby Lobby, their canvas boards warp like crazy. The 8x10s, I have not had a problem with that with Fredericks. Now, the bigger 16x20s, if they're sitting wrong long term and they're not framed, those I've had warp a little bit, but when you frame them, they're fine. So these are definitely a more sturdy, hardy, like hold their shape better than most other canvas boards, plus they're really smooth. The other thing that's really nice with these, you don't need your typical open like painting frame, which can cost a lot more. You can get a cheapo like 8x10, any frame from Walmart, Target, wherever, and all you do is pop out the glass, pop this in its place, done, framed, ready to hang on the wall. Like these are the easiest thing in the world to frame, and especially this being a common size. So let's go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, leave them now. I'll be answering them at the end of the video. Also, we have over on our Patreon Discord, Rick was asking earlier tonight for some tips on getting that like scraggly, I was gonna say fur, hair, beard, old man, hair on face hair. We'll go with that because I can't talk. But he was asking how to best get that look with graphite. So I'm going to be doing a very quick kind of, well, it is a demonstration. It's not going to be like the most amazing thing in the world, but we will be having a demonstration on how I would draw beard hair on, I keep wanting to say beard fur, beard hair in graphite at the end of the video. Okay. You think it's mostly favors a great white shark. Maybe. I am not one for identifying sharks. Marine fish, some of those I've got, if they're stuff we keep, small stuff for the aquariums, but sharks, not so much. We don't keep them in our tanks, so I don't know the different ones. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do, whenever I'm working in acrylic, I'm going to work with whatever is farthest in the back and move my way forward. So that is going to be the background. So I'm going to start with a whitish kind of gray blue, like a light bluish gray. I'm just going to throw all those words together, and some of them have to work. And I'm going to fade down into a medium blue and then down into the black. I'm not going to worry about the ripples in the water. Again, this reference photo is over at my website if you want to follow along. So let's go ahead. Oh, I don't even have my paint on the palette. So starting out, these are all the colors from last week. And this is the nice thing about this palette. I believe I have this linked in the video description. These colors still wet from, well, see, now they're all over my hand, from last week. All because of being kept in what's essentially a big Tupperware for paints. So I keep a paper towel that's damp, or wet really. I just keep that in there, and it has a lid that seals it off, just like your big Tupperware type lid. So all of this paint, these portions where I was mixing that are flat, that's dry. But the chunks, those are still, as you can see, they're on my hand now, those are still wet. So it's really, oh, the volume. Yes, actually, I bet I can get that up. Hold on. I know what's wrong. Let me see. Oh, yeah, that is definitely the problem. That should be much better. And that's as high as I can get it. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay. So back to the palette. This is just a glass palette. And when I clean it, all I do is take the razor blade that I lost. Where did I put that? That's not convenient. I may have to grab a new one. I should have a razor blade around here somewhere, but I take the razor blade and just scrape the paint right off the glass palette. So it's really not very wasteful compared to other methods that I've used in the past. Well, there's a missing razor blade floating around my studio, but other methods that I've used in the past, this is a much, like, I'm not wasting as much. The paint lasts longer. Like, again, all this paint's from last week and it is perfectly good. And it's easy to clean. So really, really handy. And I'm using a New Wave glass palette. You can use any glass. Some people will use just like the glass out of a frame. You just want it to be thick enough that it's not snapping when you put any pressure on it. And this one fits perfectly in that palette. I have one for my oils and one for my acrylics. Okay, so let's go back to putting paint out. I'm going to go with Phthalo Blue. I've already got black out, but let's go ahead and put some more. Just because I'm probably using a lot of that tonight. And that is actually, that black's been out for like 3 weeks. So it's probably getting a little bit crispy. Let's go ahead and, I probably am good on the white, but just in case, we'll add a little more. And let's see. Oh, it's on the, oh, thank you. Yep, you're right. There it is. And it has a ton of paint on it. But yeah, you just scrape that up, but I need to apparently wipe that off. And then I'm going to use a little bit of turquoise. Now, if you don't have turquoise, you can mix your own by adding green. I usually do phthalo blue and phthalo green, about a 50-50% mixture, and it gives me a really pretty teal turquoise type color. Okay, and that is not in focus. Let me fix that really quick because that's going to get annoying tonight. Palette. It was in focus early. Oh, because it's auto. Every time it switches itself to auto, things go all kinds of terrible. Okay, much better. Now, let's go ahead and start painting. So I'm going to use a 2-inch brush. This one is a Simply Simmons. Well, maybe I'm lying if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. And make sure I've got my mop brushes ready. That one did not get dried all the way earlier. See, I knew I was not ready. That one had dog fluff on it. How do you artists with really fluffy cats and dogs keep the fur out? My gosh, even with my short-haired dogs, they like to leave fur. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and mix water. The other thing you want to have handy, this is a fine mist sprayer. This is priceless. If you paint in acrylics, trust me, pick one of these up. It doesn't, this one's a name brand one. I think I got it from Blick, but you can get, I've also got the ones that are the generic ones from Amazon. These are so handy. It mists a fine enough mist that you're not getting those heavy droplets like you would a normal spray bottle. And so I can lightly mist this, keep it wet. I can keep it wet for hours if I wanted to. So if you painted with acrylics and you have a hard time with them drying too fast and you're not able to get things to blend well, this is what you want. That thing is amazing. Okay. And let's go ahead. Where did the brush go? I'm already losing stuff. Like I just had it. Oh, here it is. Huh. Okay, so I am going to mix water. And one of the things you unfortunately cannot see is I've got my water over here. I'm dipping the brush in the water and then I will come over here. Now you can see as the water's mixing in there. I'll go ahead and mix the lighter color first. And I'm just going to mix a bit of everything here. Now, because this is a more grayish tone, I'm going to pull a touch of black in there just to gray it up. If ever you have a grayish tone that you want, the way that you achieve that is black and white, and then whatever color that you want mixed in. Let's go way lighter than that. So now right now, this is actually a good color, but there's so much of it that if I want a lighter version of that. If I keep mixing white into that, I'm just gonna waste a ton of paint. So what I'm gonna do instead, take a chunk of paint just with what's on that brush. And now I've got two different tones, the lighter version, without just continuously stirring into that same pot. So this is what I'm going to start with. We're gonna come over here to the easel. I am going to do a light mist first over the canvas. And you don't have to do that first. You can just start painting on it with water. It just makes it a little easier because everything's going to glide smoothly now. So I've got this lighter area here. If that starts to dry, I will just start adding more, I'll mist it again with the water. So I have so much paint for mixing on that brush. I'm just going to wipe some of that off. And I'm going to reload with that darker color now. And we're just going to go right onto the canvas. Just let those mix together. And I'm going to go even more of a pure color, the blue and the turquoise. I'm just slopping them together. Nothing needs to be perfect. Now that I want to stay wet so I can mist it if it does start to dry, but I'm going to just wipe it off on there. I'm going to pick up just straight blue and start getting darker. And I don't really care if there's too many streaks because we're going to be putting so many little ripples in there. Now I'm going to go straight into black. Now there is still a little bit of white on this brush. If I go straight into black, I'm just going to turn it into a charcoal gray. So I'm going to wipe my paint off the brush first. And now I'm going to go ahead and load it with black. And we're going to let these two colors just mix together. Again, this needs to stay wet. If yours is starting to dry, go ahead and mix or mist it with water. Or if you don't have a mister, you just load more water on your brush, like I'm going to do right now. So it's a little bit more wet. And I'm going to do a couple of brush strokes here. Don't overdo this or you just create a muddy mess. Just a few brush strokes to soften this transition up. And the rest of that, I'm going to soften out with a mop brush. So what a mop brush is I'm using a powder brush, so a makeup brush. And I'm just going to very lightly go over this. I am not pushing very hard. This needs to stay wet. If it starts to dry, it is, there's the right button. If it starts to dry, it is not going to do what you want it to do. So work fast or use your fine mist sprayer if you need to. And I just want to soften these brush strokes out. I'm not trying to blend the colors together. That you should be done with the other brush first. This is just for softening out those brush strokes. Now, if it starts picking up a lot of paint, like right now you can see that just came off on my hand, that's picking up too much paint. So it is going to start creating brush strokes instead of taking them away. So I'm going to dry that. I'm going to go in circles. I'm going to dry that brush, get all that off, and now I can go back with it. Or pick up a new clean brush and use that. That's your other option. Whoops, there was a big chunk of black there. It was on the edge of the canvas and the brush picked it up. So we'll just blend that in. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to put all of those ripples, but go for close, just so you're not spending too much time trying to undo something. And that is good enough. Now, to rinse this brush, all I need to do is dip the very tip of the bristles into my water. I don't need to get the whole thing wet because there should only ever be paint on the very tips of this brush. I've seen videos where people will use this to apply paint. It's not a practical idea. It doesn't give you very much control, and these brushes hold so much paint, so much water, like you would be wasting so many materials, and you don't have great control. Can you get good results doing that? Sure, but they're not better than using a brush that's more suitable for the technique. I don't ever use these to apply paint. And like I said, there's a guy I will follow on Instagram, and he's a great artist, but he's wasting a ton of paint doing this, and it's much, much harder to control. He'll do it for like clouds and such. There are way better brushes for that are more practical. I mean, use what works for you, but why are you wasting paint? I don't know who's got money for that right now. This is much, much better. So that one is dry and ready to go. And now the brush that I had sitting over here, we don't want to forget about that. I'm going to go ahead and wipe paint off that. And then I will rinse, I'm just wiping it on a paper towel, and then I will rinse it in the water. Now, another fun fact about your paint, there is a video that is always one of the top acrylic painting videos, I guess because it's I think it's because he says stuff no one else says, and he's saying stuff, the reason no one else says it is because it's all BS. The video is so dumb. But anyway, it drives me crazy because it's so like inaccurate. But one of the things that video says, so you've probably seen it, is that your water with acrylic painting needs to be clean all the time. So you should have a separate brush for your water and a separate for loading, like mixing water in with your paint, and a separate one for rinsing your brushes. There is no reason for that. That's watercolor. Like, I don't know why he's making that up. That is watercolor. Watercolor and acrylics are not the same. This paint can, my water, I don't know if I can get it to where you can really see. Look at how dirty that is. That is like mud, and it will make no difference. At no point do I need to clean that out. It can be mud, and your paint, your whites, everything will come out super bright, just like they did before. This is not watercolor. That's not a problem. Your water can be dirty. Okay, let's go ahead and dry this and hope I don't trip the power breaker thingy again. The main way that I can tell this is dry, I work with Liquitex Basics. They are my absolute favorite acrylic paints. Not because they're cheap, that's just an added bonus, because they just work with my techniques. But they're matte, they dry more matte. There's a little gloss, you can see there. When there is a lot of gloss, that's usually when I know, and I can feel it because it's a little tacky, that is not 100% dry. So that I will need to make sure is completely dry before I start painting the shark. But for doing the water ripples, this will be fine. Also, I see, wait, we'll say it quietly before they jump up. We've got a super chat from Chris. Oh, look at them. What do you guys think you're waiting for? That is a cute tilty head, Gibson. Do you think you're going to get a super chat from Kristen? Wow, could you be cuter? That was good, Gibson. Thank you so much, Kristen. Oh, this is tasty, huh? That's your favorite. Oh, I think I pulled out too big of a piece. Easy. Nice. That was very good. Good boy. Oh my God. You are why I have tile floors. Dear God, the drool. Sighthounds are not supposed to drool like that. Thank you. Say thank you to Kristen. Okay, go lay down. Good boys, lay down. Lay down. Don't give me sad puppy eyes. Lay down. 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 Thanks again, Kristen. All the way. You got to stretch on the way down, Gibson? There we go. Okay. Okay, so for the ripples, I've got my reference photo. That I'm using is a very loose guideline just to get an idea of where I want them located. I'm going to apply this. There's a few different ways I can apply that. I can use a small flat brush. I can use a round brush. I can use a small filbert. Either any of those things will work fine. So let me see what I've got available over here. I have a small flat, so that one being that it's handy and out, we'll go ahead and go with that. Now I'm going to go with a slightly lighter version of the white that was already there. So you can see I'm just mixing that off to the side into this. So it's not straight white. I want it to be a little bit more subtle than what I would get with straight white. Now the other thing is whenever I'm going to paint, I don't ever just load the brush and go straight onto the canvas. I normally will dab it. This is why you can always see brush marks there or on the front of my easel. I will generally dab it a little to make sure I don't go too crazy, because sometimes I have so much paint on that brush. So I just want to start creating the look of these little ripply guys. And I don't want to push very hard. If I push harder, get a thicker line, then less pressure to the brush will give me a thinner line. I'm going to reload that. Oops, that one has a little bit more blue in it. Ooh, that has a decent amount more blue. Where'd you come from? And don't worry, if you have a shaky hand, that is going to work better for this. Think too much coffee. And I want some of these to be thicker, so I'll fill some in a little bit. And as I move my way down, I will shift to where it's just a lighter version of whatever there is. Oh, you can't see that at all. Hold on, let me show you what this is looking like over here. You should be able to see better. So you can see what my ripples are looking like. This is a much more accurate representation of the color. Unfortunately, it looks like this camera is just not in love right now. Let me see if there's anything I can do to help that. Unfortunately, during the summer, it's always a challenge too, because the lighting shifts. So between the painting color shifting and the lighting outside shifting, it throws everything off, but that is having a hard time, isn't it? Let's see if there's anything I can do. Nope, wrong camera, to help. Because that's not, it even looks more teal on camera than what I'm seeing. Let's see. Oh, I didn't even, actually, let me change it a different way. Let's go with the Elgato. What camera was that? Camera hub. It's thinking about opening or ignoring me. It may just go with that. There we go. Okay, this was camera 2, I think. And no, that didn't do it. Turn down the saturation a bit. That was certainly too much. That helps some. Nope, too much. Isn't it supposed to be 124? No. Sorry about this. I'm just trying to get that as close as I can. Oh, that actually helped a lot. Oh, my temperature was too low from last week. That right there is what it looks like. Wow. Okay, save that. Yay, I was actually able to fix it in a way that worked. It usually doesn't come out that perfect. Like, wow, I'm excited. Okay. Now it looks right. Like weirdly, I'm surprised how accurate that is. Okay, back to work. So let's go ahead, and we've got some different ripples in here, some different shapes. That's a bit too much water. I'm just going to dab that brush on a paper towel. You can see I kind of double up on some of these. So as I do a line, see how I keep pulling it out? It's very similar to how I would do wood grain, sort of. And you're not trying to make it look all the exact, like if some of it's a little bit brighter, good. We want that variation. Actually, we don't, oh, I hope I don't mess it up by moving this. Let's see. No, the color is fine. Don't really need that anymore. Although now I have to paint on the front of my easel to dab the brush. I'm going to turn the brush to start getting some different brush strokes in here. In this, getting the ripples does take a little bit of practice to get comfortable with. That when you're new to doing that, I would say copy as close as you can to your reference photo. But as you get comfortable, the reference photo is a very loose guideline. It does not need to be exact. But it took me years to really get the hang of the movement there. So if you're uncomfortable with that, that's normal. But do start just copy close. It's kind of like with clouds. When you first start painting clouds, you want to go a little bit closer to your reference photo as you're learning the movement. But as you get going, your reference photo is a very loose guideline. You'll get to where you can go through it very quickly because you've done clouds so many times. You know how they move. You know how to paint in those shapes. I want to start getting some variation of like the chunkier white bits in here. Technical term, chunkier white bits. You can see I'm filling some of this in. The other thing, you want to watch not to keep doing the same brush stroke again and again. It's very easy to do, but it will start giving you a very unnatural look. Variation is key. You know, some of these I can go in and make a little bit thicker. And then as I start coming down here, I want to get more into the teal colors or the lighter blues. darker blues, whatever. Go with what I'm painting, not with what is coming out of my mouth, because that is apparently not accurate. This is going to be too light. Maybe. Yeah, needs more white. Not too light, too dark. See, I'm telling you, the words are not right. I'm really bad at the words. There we go. And this is just going to start following pretty much the same patterns. And I'm not going to go as crazy as my reference photo there. This is two photos and some Photoshop to get it to look that way with like the lighting and stuff. But the way that those ripples are, if I do it just like that, it's going to distract from the shark. So mine will be a little bit more subtle. Remember, push harder to get a thicker line. If you want a thin line, you're just barely letting the bristles touch the canvas. And if you're working on a canvas that has too much tooth, it's really bumpy, you're not going to get the same smooth lines I'm getting. So if you are struggling, don't beat yourself up over it. The canvas is often to blame when your brush strokes are just harsh and you're not getting those nice, long, smooth lines. The canvas really does make a huge, huge difference. So one of the things you can do if you are working on a canvas that is too rough, but you already bought them and you don't want to, you've got them, you may as well use them. Throw a couple coats, 2, 3 coats. I usually do 3 coats of gesso. I use Liquitex gesso and I apply it, I don't have one over here, but with like I just use a sponge brush, those cheapy little craft sponge brushes. But I think it's a 2-inch or a 3-inch. I put a layer, let it dry all the way, put another layer, let it dry, another layer, let that dry. And then I take about a 320, is that a thing? 320? 3 something grit sandpaper and lightly go over it. A 220 works as well. Something in the 200 to 300, 400 range. Any of those are going to work the same. And I just go over it and sand it, and that will give you a much smoother finish. So if you have already, I know, I've been there. If you've already bought some canvases and they're a bit too rough, then that is something that you can do that will make them easier to work on. We've got some of these little circly guys. A lot of this will start getting covered with the shark, and that's fine. See right here, I don't know if you can really see, it's kind of dotted. I didn't do a nice good brush stroke there, so that is certainly something that I need to adjust. I need more paint and more water on my brush. Much better. Now it flows nice and smooth. See, and this would be an example. These are 2 very similar brush strokes. 2 is fine. Too many where you keep going the same way, you start looking like a child's coloring book. Break that up, change the shape some. And again, I'm using a very light hand. You don't want to push hard unless you want super thick lines. Another thing is to make that color fairly subtle. I only want this a few shades lighter than the paint that I'm going over. If I go too light on this, it just stands out too much. Now, the other thing that I could do though, let's say I went way too light on all of this. One of the solutions would be, once that dries, is to glaze just blue and water over it. So lots of water, a little bit of blue. That would be a method to tone a lot of that down. So let's say you just did all of it with white. You don't want to worry about trying to get lighter as you move down. And that would definitely work. White all the way through, dry it, and then glaze. So again, more water than paint, and then your paint, and just tint the color, and that will tone that down. And you get really cool effects that way because of the way that the light refracts through each of those layers. I'm going to go darker even now. We're almost done with that background, and we can get started on the shark. And this will be a lot. This won't look as bright when it's dry. It's the way that the light is currently refracting through the wet paint. It's not that the color is shifting as it dries. It may appear that way. The color itself is not changing. It's that the light is not shiny anymore. It's because of this being as bright with the bright lights over it and the water in there. That's what's causing it to look brighter. A lot of people think that acrylic paints shift color, and it's like, no, it's just that it dries really fast, and so it appears that way, but that's not really what's happening in most cases. The only colors that I've really seen, that's enough for the background, the only colors I've really seen shift with acrylics were teals. Like, they always dry darker, whether I buy it a teal or I mix it. They always dry a little bit darker. But other than that, most of the colors are not actually shifting. It's that the water is drying, and so you don't have that light refracting through quite in the same way. But when it dries, then you can put your varnish over it. It makes it look wet again. Not as much. Like, this would never look as bright white as it did when I first laid it down. That was just an issue of how much water I had. I don't know if that makes any sense. Okay, I'm going to dry this. Now, once I get the shark painted in, there is a very good chance I'm going to come through and make some adjustments with this. I don't want to do it right now because let's see where the shark is going to land. Now, I've already pre-drawn him out on a piece of tracing paper. So all I do, just to save time, you can freehand if you want, or in this case, I just stuck the tracing paper to my computer monitor, traced out my subject, and I'm going to tape the tracing paper to the painting. And I've got paint that is wet. And it's not dry all the way. Okay, and now I'm going to take a piece of transfer paper and a stylus that I saw earlier. There it is. Oof. And we're gonna draw this guy in. So I'm just gonna stick this in here. And even if you want to freehand, I would still do the same thing. I would freehand, go ahead and draw your shark on another, like a pad of paper, and then use tracing and transfer paper to get it clean on here. Otherwise, if you're drawing, you could draw with a white charcoal pencil, draw your shark in. But you're going to have eraser marks everywhere. Unless your first time through, everything's perfect, great. Otherwise, you will have eraser marks places. And I don't want that. I want this to be very clean. The other thing I've seen people do, they'll pre-draw everything out with a graphite pencil and then paint over it. One, the graphite will usually, depending on how thick you put the paint on, for me, it normally shows through. Most of your acrylic paints have a transparency to them, so not cute when you see the graphite lines through. But the other thing is, can you imagine trying to paint around this shark and make that all smooth? It's hard enough making it smooth without the shark there. Like, that is just impractical. So doing it in this order makes your life much easier, and you are much more likely to be successful in painting. And I just have to lightly go over that. You can see the lines underneath. You can see the shark. And this really just saves a ton of time too. You're not fixing mistakes, you're not, like, all of that's already been drawn. Now let's say I paint over this, and what I probably will do is just paint it so it's all smooth, and then come back through with the tracing and transfer paper again and draw any details back in. Not that he has a ton of details, but if I lose them, I can just quickly go over it again. That's probably good enough. There we go. And then if you do have anywhere, like the transfer paper, oh my gosh, I smudged that. Hold on. Let me take a little bit of water. I can fix that. I'm just going to take water and a paper towel and go right over that, clean that right up because that paint underneath is dry. Problem solved. Okay. So we're going to start. I want a Teflon bristled filbert. This one will work. Oh wait, you're in a way healthier condition though. Let's get some of these tools out that I'm going to need. Ooh, no, you. Much better. Okay, so Teflon bristled filbert, you can see it's got that rounded end. I'm not going to use the flat brush because the flat gives me harsh start and stop points. This is much easier to get really smooth lines, but I do want to make sure it's in good condition, meaning it's not a fluff ball. Can you see this one, how it's kind of fluffy? Look at the difference. This one is in much healthier condition. It's not been damaged. Now, don't throw your fluff balls away. They have other technique. When you've damaged a brush, they'll be able to do things that your healthy brushes can't. So keep them, but not for this. For this, I want a healthier brush. So again, I'm going to thin that with water. I'm going to use the exact same colors that I used on the water. I'm just going to first start by getting everything lined in, and then we'll go through and start working with more shading. You can use a smaller brush for the smaller areas if that's more comfortable. Don't feel like you have to use the exact same brush that I'm using. If you are more comfortable with small, that works. And that's something I've seen where teachers will take the small brushes away from their students and be like, no, you must use the big brushes. You're going to naturally get to where the more you paint and draw, you will get comfortable using your bigger brushes. I don't think it's something that you have to force. But you'll get to where you can make the big brushes do the same thing as your small brushes. That's just going to happen naturally on its own. You can see I'm not worrying about any shading, anything like that right now. Just let's block him in. Now, as much as I say no shading, I lied a little bit. I am going to pull a bit more white when I get down to the belly. And I'll be correcting all of these shaded areas better in a moment here. We'll get this blocked in and dry it first. Let's keep inside the lines, Lisa. Take a wet brush, and I'm just going to erase that. So if you have that happen, as long as your previous layer is dry, you just take a brush, add a little bit of water. It is now an eraser. Okay, and let's go ahead. I'm going to add a bit of the darker color, some blue with black, just for this area to blend these two so I get a slightly soft transition. And we're going to do another layer and blend this better. This is just mapping it out, so nothing needs to be perfect. Actually, I'm going to go right over the mouth. We're going to draw that back in. I don't know why I'm making my life more difficult than it needs to be. It's going to look a little weird here for a bit. Okay, we're going to dry that, and then I see we've got, I can't say it yet. Hold on. That a chance to cool, and you can tell it got way darker outside. We've got a quiet, look, no one even knows yet, from Super Chat. Said, look at Gibson's the good one. Gibson is waiting. He's like, oh, you said my name. I give up. I'll come too. So he's like, I'll try to be good. Bad Cow is just going to let himself up. He's like, whatever, you said the word, I can come. Thank you, Rick, so much for the super chat. He said, the pups need a snack. Wade agrees. Good boys. Thank you, Rick. You are very good for waiting, Gibson. He's like, I'll try hard to be good. Okay, that's it. Go lay down. Down, down, down. Don't choke on it. Go lay down. Say thank you, Rick, and now lay down. Slow race dogs. Moseying on over. Gibson. Gotta stretch first. Get all comfy. Okay. You down? Yeah, you're down. Okay, while that, I'm gonna leave that for a second. I'm gonna come back up here and do a little bit of work on the lines that I previously did. just going to take some blue and make some of these a little bit thicker, and I can go right over the shark. I don't even care about that right now, but now that I can see where he is, I can get, and this is really translucent. I'm using a lot of water here. Just breaking some of these up, making them a little thicker. And just the same blues I already used. It's subtle. It's just toning some of these down. It gives me some more variation. And this won't be as bright. Well, you guys can't, it doesn't actually show that much. In person, because the way the water is lighting that up, it shows up more. There we go. Heather said, I wanted to know if Wade's allergies were bothering him. Yeah, he's always a bit pink. That is just his normal state of being. He's not been too bad, though. I think it may be there's a red light behind him, too, so that's making it worse. But he's not been that bad. But yeah, summer he always is itchy. Okay. So that is in there. Now let's go ahead and start getting the shading right on this guy. Now I can just keep it wet, same thing as I blend this out, and use that. We're going to start with light. Oh, this may be a bit too much water. Overdid it. See, we just start looking at your reference photo. Where are your lights and darks? That's what we're going to start watching for now. And hopefully staying inside the line a little bit better than me. Again, I want to keep that wet, and I'll start loading more blue. And let these blend together. If it starts to dry, I'll just mist that with my fine mist sprayer. Now this doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. Close is close enough because we will be going over it with the rays of light bouncing around on his back. So as long as you're close, you'll be fine. That is starting to dry, so let's go ahead and mist that just a little. I need to get some black mixed in with this. Now, the added bonus with mixing black in with this, it's also, because I've already got white in there, it's going to start giving me a bit of a grayish tone, which I want. Let's see how I can just start mapping this out, like putting in about where it goes. And as long as I keep misting it with that fine mist sprayer, I have all the time in the world to blend. Until that's starting to dry just a bit. Just a light mist. Got this dark area on the fin there. Okay, and we've also got the dark around this edge. I want to start blending that up into the white. And a little bit on this fin as well. It's in the distance, we don't want that as bright anyway. This is starting to dry, so we'll just mist that again. And now I'm going to rinse this brush out. I'm going to go ahead and lightly go over this. Let's start blending this a bit. So this brush is barely damp. And you can blend it so it's very similar to how you would blend oils. The added bonus here, though, is when we're ready for that layer to dry, we can just dry it and go right over. But if it starts to dry, you've got to mist it. It is not going to give you great results if you try blending over where it's like half dry. That starts creating a hot mess. And it is not cute. Hence, hot mess. Okay, let's get some blue around this edge. And believe it or not, really the hard part of this painting, the majority of it is done. The rest is pretty much a breeze. It's a little too blue. I actually prefer a bit more black here because the bottom being as dark as it is. There we go. Some white in here. And I just mixed it with what was already on the brush because I don't want actual white. I just want to lighten that up a bit. Right in through here. I'm going to darken that again. And I'm not even having to rinse my brush. I am using these same, like I'm just letting it create that mud because it's just darkening the color. Oh, that's not dark enough. That's already there. Like I'm not, if I was using red and then I have to go to yellow, okay, then I would have to rinse the brush. But these are all very similar colors. Lightly mist that. Actually, at this point, I think I'm going to take, this is one of the things when the brush is a little bit fluffier, it gets pretty handy. I'm going to use a separate brush just for smudging things out now. And then I'll use this brush for applying the paint. In this area, when we get into this stage, we're really worrying about our values because that's what's going to make such a difference in that end result. Dark's dark enough, light's light enough. This will make it look more three-dimensional. If you have one flat color, like people get really worked up when they're painting, if they just knew the right color. If you have the perfect color, great, you have a cartoon. We don't want that. We want to get the shading in there. We want to get those shadows. So the color doesn't, you don't even have to use the same colors as me. You could do this with purple instead of replace my blue with the purple and it would still look as realistic if you get your values in there correct. Dark's dark enough, light's light enough. That is what is going to make your work look realistic. And of course, I mean, you want to have a fairly accurate drawing, but even if your drawing is perfectly accurate, if you don't get your values in there, it doesn't matter how perfect your drawing is. It's not going to look three-dimensional. And look at how as I keep going in and working on the shading, how it just keeps changing, keeps adding more depth. But nothing is drying here because of that fine mist sprayer. That is such an important key. And how often you have to spray yours depends on how humid your room, the room you're in. Like if your heater is running, it's going to dry a lot faster. It's 100 degrees out right now. Oh, we're down to 97 at 9 p.m. But it's been hot here in Texas. So we have our air conditioning running all day. I don't find that dries things very much. Plus it's been fairly humid out. But like if you have a ceiling fan going, that is going to dry it more. Okay. I need a slightly smaller brush for these smaller fins. I'm going to dry it, do a little bit more shading, and then we'll do our highlights, which is the funnest part to me, and the rays of light. So I think the rays of light on this one, can't decide if I want to do the airbrush or paint it by hand, because if I paint it by hand, I can get a little bit more, make it more defined, which I kind of want on this one, not as soft. How about I'll do it by hand, and if I don't like it, I'll go over it with the airbrush to soften it up. So I'm going to define that fin. We've got the underside there. Okay, think I really want to dry this layer now so I don't start messing it up, because it's getting to the stage where it's starting to dry. So that will, it's more likely to start lifting paint and creating a mess. I mean, I could mist it again, but I'm getting to that stage where it's like, let's dry it and then glaze over that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use the transfer paper again and get his mouth drawn in, his mouth and his eyes. I mean, I can freehand it, but why? I've already drawn it. You know, like, just make your life easier. Kind of like the guy painting with a mop brush. Like, does it work? Sure, but why are you making your life harder than it needs to be? So we've got his little eye. And now I'm going to use a liner brush to add this, if I can find it. There it is. We'll just do that with black. Yeah, oh, you're getting a critical error on the bidding. Hold on. I don't know. The only thing, you are not the only one who has ever had problems with this, trust me. I might be able, is it letting people bid at all? So we've got one bid, so I can't undo it. Dolphin Soul, do you want me to send you, I think I have a way, I found this out recently, under users, you said it's not letting you log in. I can try resetting your password. Let me see, let me find you. Shoot, I don't know how to spell your name. We'll just put car. Nope, that didn't work. That's not it. There you are. See, car should have come up. It wanted me to put your whole name. Yeah, see, I was trying to do 2 R's. I can send you a password reset. I don't know if that will work. It shows, yeah, customer. It doesn't show that there's anything wrong with it. I don't know why it does that for some people. Yeah, do it on a desktop. Absolutely. If you are on a mobile device, I do not trust anything happening to that right now. If that doesn't work, let me know, or let Nick know, and Nick can let me know in chat. Chris, oh, thank you. I found you though. I can set or tell it to reset your password, and we can see if that'll make a difference or not. That's unfortunate because I don't know why it does that. But let me know. I'll be watching the chat thing to see if you want me to try that. I don't know if it'll work right. You're going to have to probably go to a desktop or a laptop or whatever, a PC. Also, are you doing it on a mobile device? I wonder if that's the reason, because if it is, I want to make sure to change the thing to let people know that is the problem or a problem. So we've got the eye. And I want to add blue to that. I don't want it to be that black. That'd look weird. There we go. Oh, notification just about made me jump. Let's see. Sorry, it's my friend Chris taking weird photos of her. She's taking some funny selfies with funny things on her. I was not expecting that from Chris. Oh, Nick said he's also had that happen only to discover he was already logged in and already able to bid. Interesting. Oh no, Tanya, fellow Texan whose AC went out waiting for, oh God. Because of my reef tanks, if my AC goes out, I'm kind of one of those, I will pay any amount to get someone out here because I am screwed with the tanks. Yeah, that can't, yeah, fun. Anyway, okay, focus, Lisa. So I'm going to just go ahead. I want to, yeah, I can do it with this. I want to start building these darker bits and just smudging that with another brush. And because what was already on there is dry, it doesn't lift it or cause any issues. You can start really getting that shape. Now notice that I'm not doing those bright highlights yet. We're saving that. That goes last. Let's get these in now. See how I can go over that and then just take this damp brush. I'm just gonna smudge out that shadow. And then like here, I'm smudging too high. I'm gonna get this brush wet again. It just was had too much paint. And then smudge at the top. Look at how that just gives you this perfect, it looks like oil paint. You can make acrylics look just like oil. I hear from people, actually one of my favorite things was the person who said, if you want oil paint it to look like oils, just use oils. Or I could just make the acrylics look good. I mean, learn how to use the medium. You can make it look however you want. So this is one of the ways that you do it to get this nice blending, is take that separate wet brush and smudge over. And it takes some getting used to. And even with me, I've been doing this for years. It will occasionally give me some weird results and I have to go over it a couple of times. Like if it's not, like if it's a little too wet, a little too dry, you have to play around with it. But look at the amazing shadows and details and all of that, just lightly going over it. And this is the next trick. Notice when I go over it with the second brush, I don't keep reworking it again and again. It's like 2-3 brush strokes and stop. Dolphin Soul, did you get yours fixed? So we've got a little shadow here, just a little, and I'm going to pull that in. Think of this with painting. I think of it as sculpting. You're creating shapes and form in there. You want to make it look three-dimensional. We're not doing a cartoon. We've got to get those shadows. And notice like his belly would be more white. Like if he were out of the water, which would be unfortunate for him, his belly would be more white, but he's under the water. So we've got to get that reflection of the water in there. Let's see, he's got his gills up here. Just a hint, and I'm not going to go crazy with those. We've got a definite muscle. Wanted to find that a bit there. Okay, and I think most of the rest of this, when we come through with the highlights, will give us what we need. Oh, you got it. Okay, good. I hate when that website does not do what it's supposed to, and I'm like, I don't know how to fix it. I'm the webmaster, and I haven't got a clue. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that. Do I want to go a little? No, I think I like how dark his belly is. Next, I am going to take a round brush. I don't want it to be quite as small as the liner. Although maybe I will because I may not have the right round brush over here. Where's my favorite round brush? I've been obsessed with this generic, I don't even know where it came from, but it works so good. Sometimes generic brushes, there it is. Ha! Like seriously, oh, this one is a master's touch, okay. The one thing that I like from Hobby Lobby, they're generic paint brushes. And I'm just gonna go with the light blue again. And now we're going to start, I need two things. One, I need a clean, slightly damp brush. We'll go with a smaller one this time. It doesn't really matter what brush, but just to show you the sizes I'm using, I've got my round and I've got, this is the one that's slightly damp I'm gonna use to blend. So that is already gonna be too dry. Oh, I can tell. Let's add a bit of water. And we are going to start creating, this is the darker line. I'll pull highlights over it. Let's just come around here. Let's get his fin. But we want to do this in at least 2 tones, so a darker blue, and then we'll come back with the highlights. And these need to be slightly curved to start creating so his body looks curved. We've got the highlight right along the back of that tail. We've also got highlight coming here. And this is also the stage if your shark is looking fluffy, things aren't totally smooth, smoothen them out now, like these edges. Now is the time to make that nice and smooth. And I'm going to smudge that. So see, I'm just smoothing out the edges right now. Right along the top. And then if I want to soften that just a little bit on the inside, not the outer edge, I want that outer edge nice and sharp. And he had a little highlight over his eye. And then along this fin. Okay, now back to creating the lines. So the fin is going to change opposite. Look how this curves up, and it's like a kind of like a weird shaped backwards Y. These curve back. I'm going to soften that a bit. It's funny, I'm seeing some of the comments of you guys talking about being afraid of the sharks. When my mom found out that I was going to be painting a shark tonight, she literally whined at me, "A happy shark? Like, what do you mean a happy shark? You know, a happy one? Like with the person's arm hanging out of its mouth? Like, what are you looking for here?" And she's like, "No, like a cartoon." I'm like, "No, I'm not painting a cartoon happy shark." So those of you who are not fans of these guys apparently are not alone. My mom is with you. I just thought it was funny she actually whined. So see again on the fin how I curve back on that highlight. I'm just creating where the rays of light are creating that reflection on his skin. It just gives a lot of interest. We are almost done with him. Lightening up the belly just a bit there. Thank you. See, says, I can't read that. Says, looks like a happy shark. Thanks. I thought so. He makes me happy. I mean, I don't want to go swim with him. I'm not going to mess with him. It's his ocean, but I used to like swimming. I'm from originally Southern California, and I used to like to swim in the ocean until I really got into reef keeping and I learned what was in that water. I was like, yeah, no, I'm out. I'm good. Have fun with that. Lay down, Wade. So now I'm using white. Now I'm coming through with some of these brighter highlights. I'm going to smudge that. Was a little bit too bright, so I'll just smudge that out a little bit. This is where we start getting just, and it needs to be subtle. We're not trying to make it like over the top here. Wade, stop. Good boy. And I'm hitting just kind of where some of these light rays that we drew in just a second ago are meeting, and it starts to look shiny. If you do this, if you do the white over every single line, it won't look so shiny anymore. Just get some of them. Let some of that previous darker layer show. See how on that fin, I just pulled that one spot. That will make that just stand out so much. Now the reference photo did not have these rays of light, so you might think, well, how would you know where to add them? practice. I've done a lot of paintings where it did have the rays of light, and you do so many of them that you can take a photo that maybe isn't as great, but you like the angle, which was the case in this one, and I like the shadows on this one too. But I went ahead and I was able to just, well, that's what the reference photo is all photoshopped. It's actually very easy once you've done it correctly a few times. So if you don't have a reference photo that has the rays of light, and you're trying to learn how to do that, you need to find the photo with the rays of light first. Copy that several times, and then you can use a photo without that, and you know how to add them in. But it'll make it way more interesting looking. Oh, that is a big chunk of paint. What the heck did I do there? Thin that out. See, I'm just a few of these making them a little bit brighter. Just a few spots. I don't like that. I'm going to smooth that one out. There we go. Oh, I like this guy a lot. I know there's already bids, so I don't get to keep him, but I'm liking him. Even if he's not the happy shark my mom was looking for. Okay, now we need rays of light. And like I said, I mentioned before, I'm gonna go ahead and brush these in by hand, which I don't typically do on the rays of light, but I want these to be a little bit more defined. If they end up being too defined, all I have to do is soften them out with the airbrush. So that seemed like a good way to try one, see if I liked it, how it came out, and if not, I've got a backup plan. Now, it is so important that that be dry. If that is not dry, when I start brushing these rays of light in, I could smear the shark, which I guess is the end of the world. That could look cool too, but it's not what I'm going for, so there we go. And I'm going to go back to my trusty, maybe not. Maybe I'll use you. I'll use a smaller one. The White Sable, Robert Simmons. Where did this brush come from? That is nicer than what I usually buy. Oh, I don't know where this came from. It could have been out of one of my Smart Art boxes. Okay. So I'm going to start with transparent mixing white instead of jumping straight into the opaque white. So I can build it up with this. I'm going to thin that with water. Now this is going to be really transparent. Actually, I take it back. I'm going to mix a little bit of opaque white with it. Now this is an example too. My water is mud at this point. It doesn't matter. Like what I was talking about earlier, your water does not need to be clean to work. When I mix it in with my white, you can't tell. It's white. Like dirty water does not affect your acrylic paints at all. Okay, now I'm going to pull this back behind it again because I need to be able to test my brush strokes. Yeah, that's okay. So we're coming from here. And I don't like how that is too stiff or too curved. So I'm gonna take a clean brush that's a little bit damp and wipe over that. That I like. Then another one, and you want these, see how that one's kind of bent? No, straighten it out. There we go. I like it. Oops, let's straighten that again over here. But see, this is what I was hoping for. See how some of this is a little bit harsher? Now when it dries, it's going to tone down some, but this is what I was going for. Whereas with the airbrush, I'd have to use a cardboard to like keep that straight. I wanted this a little bit more defined. And I'll probably go over it with a slightly more opaque white once this dries. Soften that out. Now let's say you did this and you hated it. You're new to drawing rays of light. Well, if you're new to drawing rays of light, don't do it on your project. Do a practice first. But let's say you didn't like it. It's still wet. Everything, as long as what was underneath is dry, get it wet and lift it off. Just wipe it off. You basically erase it. I'm going to just lightly come over this from what's already there. Just getting some of these a little bit more defined now. The other thing I can do is lightly mist it, take a mop brush, and slightly soften that just a little bit. Now I'm going to dry this because I want to see how translucent that really is, because I think I need to go over it a couple more times. I'm going to pull this down a bit farther. I am liking the results I'm getting with the brushwork though, so I'm glad I chose that method. I want to pull some of these a bit farther down. See, that went over his eye a bit too much. Like I want it there, but let's soften that. There we go. Much better. Oh, I like that. I got some red in there. Get out. That is what I was looking for. Okay, and I've got red here too. Where are you coming from? Oh, no. I'll just have to fix you later. So when I use the airbrush, it tends to be a lot softer, which is great, but with the feel of the shark, I wanted something a bit harsher. Not that you can't get defined with the airbrush, but... let that fan out just a bit. There we go. And this, I think it stands out a little bit more in person than it does on video. I'll show you another one in just a moment, and I need to sign this. And I reserve the right, as usual, if I see anything, like there were a couple spots where red was getting on there, I'm gonna just put a dot of blue later. Actually, one of the areas that I wanna get right now that is bugging me, and it's been bugging me this whole time, there is a slightly harsh blue right there. That problem solved. Okay, now signing it. Now, normally I will often do the bubbles and such. I don't think that fits the feel or the mood of this painting. So if anything, you could kind of splatter some dots like to create atmosphere. Turn on if I want to do that. I kind of do. It just creates that little bit of atmosphere to have little dots. Yeah, I think it needs it. I think it would look really good. So one last thing, I'm going to take a very stiff, very damaged brush that has not been washed in way too long, and I'm going to get the palette knife that has been sitting on my floor all week for some reason I haven't picked up, but I know where it is because I left it there, and I'm going to do some kind of lighter blue. I don't want to do white, and I don't want to do a lot. I want it to be very subtle. I don't think that has enough water. No, I think it has too much water. And all I'm going to do is just lightly, oh yeah, that was a good call. Oh my gosh, it adds so much atmosphere. I'm going to wipe it off his face just a bit. There we go. What a difference. Oh, I love it. Love that. Okay, it doesn't look as good on camera for you guys. Hold on, I'll show you in a second. That's kind of making them look white. Like big giant polka dots. They're very small, they're very subtle, and when it dries, they're not going to stand out too much. Let me dry that, and then I can sign it. Oh my gosh, I'm glad I did that. You always in the water have these bubbles or particles, and that's what I wanted to create that look of. I was just one of those, ooh, I don't know, do I want it? Let me show you over here. So it's, you can't really see. You'll see when I edit this and put in a real good photo of it. But oh my gosh, I am so in love with this painting. Oh, I wish you could see the dots. Like they're so subtle, what I just splattered on there, but they add like, oh, you can kind of see. They look a little bit bigger and you're not seeing, like this is just all teeny tiny dots in here that are not really, like see? And it added, when you see it in person, it adds so much atmosphere. There's some dots up here now. I am in love with this. Okay. Now let's sign it. So same thing, just gonna sign with a light blue. I don't wanna go with white or something that's just too like, look at me. I mean, you want people to see your signature, but you don't want them to like, oops, zoom in that that's what they see. So what I like to do when I decide where I'm going to sign it, Do I want it here? Do I want it here? I definitely want it here. Like this is too busy right here. So you've, let's see. You want to make sure that you leave room for the frame because that will overlap just a bit. Oops, too much water on that brush. Okay, my signature looks like crap. That did not come out right. Hold on, I'm wiping that off. We're doing that again. Actually, I'm gonna sign it when I can do. Right now what's happening, my glasses are not the right glasses to be this close. I can't really see what I'm doing well, other than that didn't look good. So I'm just going to erase that, which is one of the nice things. When something doesn't go right, problem solved, erase it. Because what was underneath was totally dry. That was like coming out all weird and wonky and just, I will do that. I'll sign it tomorrow or tonight after the live stream. There we go. When I can draw it flat, it's easier for me to do flat. Anyway, so there we go. There is the finished painting. Super happy with that. Super happy with the fact that you can erase something that came out badly. So yay, that was fun. And this is still available right now. Bids. You can make bids right now over at my website. The link is in the description. Wow, this is the most popular one we've had by a long shot. So you guys like sharks. Also, thank you to Dolphin Soul. She's the one who suggested this. Like, it didn't even cross my mind. Let me know what you guys want to see next week. Because you guys have good ideas. Obviously, better than mine. Okay, let me clean this up because I'm going to do a quick demonstration for you. Rick had asked over on our Patreon Discord about some tips for drawing a scraggly looking beard and, well, it's not really a scraggly looking beard. That's just how beard hair has that look, that textured look. But he was asking how to achieve that with graphite. So let's see how I want to do this. I'm just going to do a really quick demonstration here. A python, huh? I'm going to have to see, I have to find the right photo. I could do a snake though. Okay, so let me move you for a moment because I don't want to get graphite on the pretty shark. And let's pull this up. And here is the image that Rick sent in. Let's start here. Okay, so if you are on Patreon, make sure you are on our Discord. The link, if I've not shared it lately, I keep having it updated. It's a whole thing. Patreon technically should be adding you in, but anyway, we chat about our pets. We chat about everything. There's an open chat. Then we also have a lot of people asking questions. Excuse me, questions about art, and that's what this one came from. So Rick asked tonight, right before the live stream, which was perfect because may as well do a demonstration, but he had asked with this image, how would you get this look with, where is it? How would you get this look? You can see the beard here, there, with graphite. There are so many different ways that you can achieve this, but one of the way that I would attack this, I am going to use graphite powder and get a base layer. And I'm just going to do a little teeny tiny demonstration. Here's the thing. Keep in mind, if you do something like this, you need to take your time. It is going to take you forever. I would also work large. Like that is tiny. And so that's going to be your own challenge. A mechanical pencil, going to be your friend for sure. But the first thing that I'm going to do is get a light layer. So I'm going to use graphite powder just because it's easy and fast to get that initial base. So let's say there, oh, that is way overexposed, but let me add a little bit more. Why am I using graphite powder instead of using the graphite pencil? Because graphite powder erases so easily that what I'm about to do will be easier. And there's so many ways you can do this, so it's not like a one-size-fits-all thing. Okay, and I've got a mess of graphite everywhere now. Let's get that out of the way. And what I'm going to use, I'm going to do two main things here. I'm going to be using my Tombow mono eraser and a mechanical pencil. And then with a mechanical pencil, my favorite lead was, oh, what was that? The AN4B. No one can get anymore. They stopped making it. But Faber-Castell now makes theirs, I forget which, whatever the darkest, it's like 2B with Faber-Castell. It's basically the same. So that will work as well. But it's a very dark, like with the mechanical pencil, I find that it comes out darker with less pressure, which is important, than with a regular graphite pencil. Why is that important? Because if you push hard, graphite is a lubricant and it tends to get very shiny very quickly. If you're pushing hard or if you're working the pencil in the same area over and over and over again, it starts to get very shiny. So what we typically do, most of us are trying to avoid too much shine. I mean, it's graphite. If there's some shine, fine, but I'd rather not have it too shiny. So if you can, one of the things to avoid it, one, graphite powder, not going to be shiny, so bonus there. But with the mechanical pencil, I can get it really dark without putting a lot of pressure, without going over it a million times. Plus, it's great for tiny detail, and in a beard, must have for me. So back to this. What I would do is block in your initial section. And if you look at the photo, I would break up everything into 1 square inch. And then you start putting in your little hairs. Pick one little area. Let's zoom this in a bit more, because that is kind of hard to see. And you can see why I use the term scraggly now. This is typical with beards. You're also going to notice there's highlights. So it's not like one long strand. You don't want to do that. That is not going to look good. You're going to do these little shapes that start overlapping. They get lighter, they get darker, and you'll be going in between them. So let's actually just build a few areas with the highlight here. I'm just paying attention to the shapes. And like I said, 1 square inch at a time is going to give you a lot more control than if you're trying to do the whole thing at once. Like here where I shaded in this whole large area, if I try going through with the eraser and doing the eraser on the whole thing, and then you come back through with my shadows with the whole thing, it's not going to be accurate. Pick one little area and just focus on that small area. Then I'm going to come back through and start defining everything better with my mechanical pencil. I don't know which lead I have in this one, so it might not be as dark as, yeah, it doesn't look like it's as dark as my 4B. But I've got a lot of control, and I do not have to push hard, but I start coming through here, and I'm also going to come on top of some of these light hairs and break them up. So like, see this hair here? It's one piece. That wouldn't be highlighted all the way through. Part of it would fall back in shadow. You still want to see the hair, but some of it needs to be a little darker, actually. Oh, I don't have my other graphite pencils in here. Let me see, is this my darker one? I think this is my darker one, yeah. But you want to get a lot of variation, and you would just focus on one tiny area at a time so you get that variation. And see, like even this strand, you would never in a beard see one long hair. This is a problem I see people do a lot when they're, I have paint on my face, don't I? When they're, that'll be fun to get off. When they're working on lions, they'll do this long hair coming all the way down. That is not, no, stop it. That doesn't look good. Let's see if I can use my camera to get the paint off my face. I may have to, you know, hold on. I've got a decent amount there. Give me a second to wipe this off. Making that worse. Okay. So again, you want to break it up into a tiny area and just build and work on that one little area, these little details in here. Oh, I guess I should actually show you. You start building just tons of little detail, and it is going to take you forever. Like this big of a space that I just did in this amount of time, if I was doing this seriously, I would probably spend, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes on one little square inch, at least. Like you're really going to break up all those little teeny, it's just abstract shapes. If you're looking at it as hair and you're trying to do just layering like this, and this is what I've seen a lot of people do, it can start to look like a beard, but you have no shading. You have no control. You're scribbling. Do people look at it and go, oh yeah, that's a beard? Sure. But that would be the case with a cartoon too. If you want to start breaking that up and really making it look realistic, you're going to look at the abstract shapes, you're going to zoom way in on that photo and copy what you see. Now you don't need every little line to be exact to the reference photo, but you do want to go close. It's kind of like the shark we just did, where the ripples in the water, I don't need them exact, I need them close. And this is the same thing. Certain portions of a portrait need to be exact. The eyes, the mouth, like that all needs to be exact, but, you know, drawn exactly. hair in the exact same place. No, that it doesn't, as long as you're close. But you've got to get a feel for that. And when you start doing these long, like trying to rush through it, this is where people go wrong. They try to rush. And I see this a lot with animal fur too. They think that they can make it look realistic by, oops, I'm out of lead on this one, by just doing a whole bunch of lines like that. Okay, I don't care how many of this you do, it's going to look terrible. That's never going to look like good fur. When we draw fur, we've got these clumps and clusters where we start grouping together. It's more controlled than just individual lines going which direction. This is confetti. This is controlled, starting to create clumps and shadows and highlights and really paying attention to what you're doing. So that is how you're going to do the hair. But in a case like this, with that beard, that is so much work. Can you do it? Absolutely. Also, really pay attention in this case. Look at the shadows here. Hold on, I can't get this to shrink. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. You. Come here. Why is OBS weirdly hard to control moving the images? It keeps wanting to help, I guess, in a way I don't want it to help. Almost there. Come on. It's really hard to like grab and move. It starts to, there we go. Okay, so notice there, well, this is now in the wrong place. Notice on that beard that it's just a clip of it, but look at where the shadows are. Look at the definite shadows and the definite highlights. Don't skip that. That would be another thing that I see people do a lot, where like you can see in here, look how dark that edge gets. Make sure you're doing that. You don't want the same highlights that are up closer to his face along the edge that's fading into the dark. So that gets much softer, much more subtle as you move away from the face. You've got much more definition closer to his face than as you move out. So that's another thing that you want to watch. The graphite powder that I'm using is Generals. I don't know if they still have this one. It was either the graphite powder or the charcoal powder I use. People weren't able to find anymore. But it's not like, the brand doesn't matter. It's all pretty much the same. So that's not one that I get picky on. But yeah, really watch that you don't overdo the definition, the detailing there. That is certainly something that I see people do a lot and try to make everything very harsh. Notice the subtleties, notice where it fades out. And that's where 1 square inch at a time, do 1 square inch, move out, 1 square inch, move out, or move on to the next area. Don't try doing all the highlights and then all the shadows. And that's the case no matter what you're doing. When you're working, let's say I'm doing a coral or painting a coral, I start doing all the shadows and all the highlights because that's the color I have mixed. It's not going to look good. Break it up into one little area and just focus on shadows and highlights in that one area. It will come out looking so much better than rushing through. And it's abstract shapes. Pay attention to those abstract shapes, because that is, and turn it upside down. That's the other thing. You can trick your brain into seeing them as abstract shapes, not shapes. That's a P, not a T. Flip it upside down and your brain will see things so much more accurately. It's weird to work that way, but that makes you see things very, very accurate, both the shadows and the highlights. So, and when you're trying to get something that detailed, you've got to work big. If I'm not working big, if I'm doing that small, I'm not going to put that level of detail in there. I'm going to get a rough look, the hint of some of the hairs, but not all of them at all. So the size that you're working on is also going to impact how much detail I would put into that. Okay, so questions. I'll pull the shark back up now. For those, actually, you can probably see better here. So here is, oh, I love him so much. Like, oh, he came out good. Love him. Okay, moving you back where you were so nothing gets spilled on you. And let's see what we've got, if those came in yet. Yep, that is the sound of questions coming in. Thank you, Nick. Okay. Marie said, Lisa, will you please talk about what projector you use? Do you like it? I have trouble projecting my image small and clear enough for tracing. The one that I use is an I think Artograph made it, and they have them on it. I paid like somewhere between $700 and $800. It was a lot. It was a big purchase. Yeah, I like it, but my understanding is that it's just a rebranded LG projector and its software was made for artists, but that's all it was. So like, I have a friend who went and bought an LG one. She spent, I think, 500 for hers, and this was years ago. You can get them for even less now, but she spent about 500 for hers, and she said the only problem she had was you have to be able to figure out how to get it to show a static image. As long as it can show a static image, no problem. And so that is, the remote was a problem for mine. They had to replace it for me. You couldn't make the battery work. I don't know. It was a known problem. They fixed it for, or they replaced it, so it was good. But they have a new one now that's, I want to say it's about $550. Blick has it, and it's got mixed reviews. But I have a feeling it's not the projector that's the issue. It's just learning to use a projector. Not everybody gets, and I always use the USB to get it in, so I've not had a problem with that. That just works well for me. The one that came with it. I've not tried using the Wi-Fi connecting through my phone. Some can do that, and I've heard people complaining that it didn't work well. I don't ever use that. I just use the USB, and that's it. So it's been fine. I would imagine that the one that's 550-ish or whatever that they now have would probably be just fine. But the digital projector is what you want to go with. If it's like the Artograph Tracer was one that you would like put the unit on a photo and then it would project it. One, you're probably going to, like, I'm surprised it never burned the house down or the apartment that I was living in, because it gets so hot. Like, it would actually start to melt or peel up if you used a photograph. It had to be a paper, but even that, if you were using it too long, it would get so hot. But it was never really clear, whereas the digital projector is. So I don't know how helpful that is. Ray said, please discuss workable fixative, Spectrafix versus brush and pencil versus Krylon. When do you prefer one versus the other? Thank you. I've never liked the Krylon workable fixative. I never found I could really go back over it. Spectrafix I only use if I'm working on pan pastels, charcoal, and colored pencil, like any of that combination. But with brush and pencils, theirs is intended just for working with powder blender. So like theirs has a tendency to have some bigger droplets can come out, but that like, it's fine with working with powder blender because it blends right out. Whereas on pastels, I would just like, Spectrafix works for all of that. It was intended for that. Brush and pencil was intended for the brush and pencil, the powder blender product. I don't know. I've never tested it. I probably should. I have no idea how well Spectrafix works with powder blender. I don't know if it gums. I don't know what happens because I've never used it. I've always used the powder or brush and pencil one. I know Jason Morgan did a review and he used it on the brush and pencil one on pastels and he didn't like it. He gave it a negative review for it, which was kind of funny. Or it sounded like he was just saying negative about it, but it's like, but it wasn't meant for pastels. It's meant for colored pencil. So if I'm going to work with like, I just feel like it seals it a little bit better. Like it, not seals it, it seems to stay in place a little bit better. I just like the brush and pencil one when working with powder blender. It's worked great. But like I said, I've not tried Spectrafix. I don't know what the I just don't know. So, but if I'm working on pan pastels, I go with the Spectrafix and the fine mist sprayer. It doesn't, I don't have to shake it for as long. Like the brush and pencil one, you have to shake it for like 2 or 3 minutes, like really, really well. Spectrafix, you don't really have to do that with, so I can be a little bit lazier, and I know that it works well with my pan pastels and my charcoals. It doesn't make it darker. I don't know if the brush and pencil one does not make the colored pencil darker. I don't know if it might make the pastels darker though. I don't know. So I don't really see a benefit to using it for other things other than the brush and pencil products. But the Krylon workable fixative is not one I would buy again. Never liked it. Never liked the results I got. Maybe it was my technique. I used it for colored pencil. I tried thinking if it would give it more tooth. No, it was terrible. Yeah, that is the extent of my experience there, which is apparently not a lot. Devern said, what is your best advice to an artist that keeps getting in their own way? You've got to figure out what works for you. So I've seen when I used to teach, and this one surprised me, when I used to teach at those, it was called Let's Art Party in Plano, Texas. They had, or people would drink a glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine while they painted, hopefully not more than that. I had ladies grab my butt. It got weird, but when they drank more. But anyway, the women or anybody who drank a glass or 2 of wine had such better results. They had so much, not only were they having more fun, they had better results because they didn't have that anxiety. It's like the wine just took the edge off. Now, I'm not saying get drunk. And I understand alcohol is not going to be for everybody, but you've got to find out what might take your edge off. Is that chamomile tea? I don't know. You've got to stop worrying about it. Like, so many artists are so worried about making mistakes. There's different ways that we can get in our own way, but the main way that I see artists just tripping themselves up is they're so worried to mess up that they won't move forward. They're not willing to make a mistake and then figure out how to fix the mistake. I mean, heck, this painting that I'm in love with, I made a mistake. I didn't like how my signature came out. I know how to fix it, no problem. I made a few things where I was like, oh, I don't like that, let me fix this. You have to learn how to make, you have to make the mistakes and then learn how to fix it, because it is going to happen throughout your entire career. Like, there is never going to be a time where everything goes perfect. You always are fixing things and be like, oh, let me fix this edge. I don't like how that came out. So I think knowing that is very important. It's one of the reasons, like, you guys on Patreon know, I'm constantly showing you, I don't like what happened here, but I leave in the mistakes, I leave in the parts I didn't like and how I went back and fixed it, because I think that's such an important part about learning, about art. It's a constant thing. It will always happen. I am very experienced. I've been painting, God, I decided I was going to be a professional artist in '98. It's been a very long time for me. And I still will continuously have things happen. I need to know how to fix them. I'm not afraid of it because I've done it. I've made so many mistakes. And that's the other thing. Like, people will make different quotes. Like, let's say you have to make 500 mistakes to become a master. Get those mistakes out of the way early. Do them now. I don't know what that number is. People make up different numbers, but make the mistakes. Do them and learn how to fix them. When you've made so many mistakes and you know you can fix them, I think that's a big thing too. Just the knowledge of, I can fix anything I screw up. Nothing is going to be the end of the world unless I like put a hole through the canvas. But I mean, for the most part, anything I screw up on that canvas, I can fix. Anything on the paper that I screw up, I know how to hide it. I know how to fix it because I have made every mistake you can possibly imagine. I'm not afraid of them anymore. I mean, we can use that as an example of, let's say, my tree frogs. When I got into red-eyed tree frogs, I was so afraid of them getting parasites because I didn't know how to handle it. Well, I jumped into the deep end with that because mine all came with parasites and I had to learn how they get internal parasites. Ew, gross, Lisa. But it's relevant. I'm not afraid of it anymore. At all, because I know how to deal with it. I've dealt with it. I fixed it. It's no longer a concern. And before that happened, I mean, the months leading up to me getting these frogs, I was so worked up over knowing inevitably, eventually they get the parasites. And then how am I going to deal with it? What do I do next? How am I? I'm master over here now. Same with painting. I am a master of mistakes. Become a master of mistakes and how to fix them. It will lessen that anxiety, that getting in your way so much. But understanding that that is a normal part. You're going to mess up. Fix it. How many times did I mess up on this painting tonight? And it's gorgeous. It didn't ruin it. Nothing's ruined. Layer until it looks good. Figure out how to fix those mistakes. Make a million of them. And don't worry about making them. Just make them and then learn to fix them. That is how you will get out of your own way. Okay. But yeah, and I also think, like, have something that you feel is calming you. The wine was an interesting thing for me because I would have thought that people drinking, their work would have come out worse. But as long as they didn't get drunk and weren't grabbing my rear, this one lady, her husband was so embarrassed when he picked his drunk wife up. Oh my God. But because her friends were telling him what she was doing. But that was hilarious. But so again, I'm not saying get wasted. That I don't think that's healthy anyway. But that was an option for some people, and that did help some people just take a little of that edge off. But yeah, don't get drunk. Okay. Next. I love that question. Python said, are these tutorials applicable to oil paint? I have oil paint, but I don't have acrylics. I love your work. Thank you. They are. You would just have that dry time. So typically with oils, same wherever I let it dry with acrylics, I would probably let it dry with, the difference here, the shark where I let it dry and then did more shading on top, you can probably do that in one go with the shark, but like where I wanted to do the rays of light over that paint, that probably needs to dry or at least start to tack up a bit, because if it's really wet, you're just going to start creating a bit of a muddy mess. So as long as you're letting it dry in between layers, yeah, it would be very similar. One thing I would do different with oils is I probably would have drawn out the shark with charcoal. You know how I started the video saying, don't draw it out, or not charcoal, with a graphite, don't draw it with graphite, the lines will show through. Oils, I do that different because oils, you've got time to blend around the shark. You can paint your whole background and then your shark over it. It's just that now you have to wait for that background to dry before you can paint your shark over it. Depends on how long you want to wait for it to dry. But if you want to get the initial layers of your shark on the same night that you did your background, then I would probably draw the shark out, paint the water around it, and then paint the shark all in the same night. So that would be my tip there. And I may have to text my neighbors about their barking dog. Hold on one second. Are you gonna let him in the house, or what are we doing here? Okay. Hold on, let me text them. Just texted my neighbor asking if his dog can come in. I don't know if you guys can hear the barking, but it's hard for me. It's like every time he barks, I'm like, I can't focus on what I'm trying to. Also, it's almost 10 o'clock at night. Does he really need to be outside barking right now? Okay. Where were we? Wade, stop. I know it's you. Actually, that could have been Gibson. Looks like it was you, Wade. Okay, here we go. Fly me to the moon. Okay, this is probably a silly question, but you know those pens with the water brush? How do you use them? I squeeze it in the puddle of, there's a puddle of water on the paper. So, actually I have one. I threw something else on the floor. So let's go ahead and come back over here. And where was the paper? So when I squeeze it, the water comes out, but I dab it on my paper first before I go, or on a paper towel. So squeeze it, let the water come out, dab some off, now you're ready to go. I never squeeze so that there's a drop, and now, I don't know if you can see, but the water is running down. So there is a lot of paint on my hands. Like, this is how, I made a mess tonight. That's how you know I had fun. Okay. Apparently he's not getting my text. Wait, is that tonight's? Where are we? Oh, I scrolled too far. Hold on. I lost my place. Here we go. Marie said, how do you know when your backgrounds are done? What do you look for? My general, oh, there we go. How do you know when your backgrounds are, let's start that over again. How do you know when your backgrounds are done? What do you look for? I look for, when can I hang this without it bothering me? Is this ready to go on my wall right now? Do I feel like this, I would enjoy looking at this? That's how I know it's done. And I know that's not necessarily a scientific way to go about it, but it's just like, one, I've got a reference photo. Am I close to the reference photo? But I don't need it to be exact, so if I'm not going for exact, then how do I decide it's done or not? Do I want this on my wall right now? I want that shark on my wall. That is how I know it's done, because I don't look at it going, oh, I don't like this. This needs to be changed. If I can look at it and go, oh, I wish that was different. I need to change that. Then it's not done. Brittany said, I like how this acrylic painting is done in a monochromatic scheme. Yeah, and you can do this. That's the cool thing with acrylic painting. So you can do, oh, this is still in the wrong place. You can do a, oh, there's all kinds of messed up. There we go. You can do a lot with acrylic. So if you are getting started with painting and you don't want to invest in every color in the world because it gets expensive, 3 colors, black, white, your favorite color. You can do so much, so many paintings with 3 colors. Well, black and white not even being colors, but 3 tubes of paint. Just get Mars black, titanium white, and whatever your favorite color is. And that is enough to get you started with acrylic painting. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get started. Rick said, seeing as abstract shapes makes, I can't talk, seeing it as abstract shapes makes sense. I was looking at it as hair and it was overwhelming. I truly appreciate the mini tutorial. Thank you so much. I'm glad I could help. Yeah, and that's just the thing. I mean, that was such a big thing for me in general. When I first started doing marine life, I was doing these corals. And I would look at an artist like Christian Lassen. You can see a lot of similarities between Christian Lassen's work and mine, you know, minus the meth. When you find out your hero ruined their life with meth. Anyway, his work, he had so much detail in the coral. I love the way that he painted his fish. I liked the detail, but I was half doing it. Like, talk about half-baked. Also a funny term when you're talking about, anyway. He would, or I thought I could take a sponge and just be like, dab, 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 dab. It's coral. And I thought I could get something done in 30 minutes on this huge canvas that in reality should have taken me, let's say, 4 days. And I mean, 4 full days. That was something I had to learn, is break it down into small pieces. We always look, and I know I occasionally catch myself doing it. Is there a faster technique? Yeah, but those faster techniques are just faux finishes. They're not, when you're doing realism or photorealism, it is not the same thing as that looking for a quick way to get something done, if that makes sense. When you're trying to make it look really realistic, usually it comes down to break it up into tiny abstract, like tiny little square inch, look at the abstract shapes, the lights and the darks. Don't do what I did and try to look for a shortcut, because the shortcut is why my work looked really bad for a few years there. I mean, it was okay, it was pretty, it was just not what I wanted. So Cece said, hi Lisa, what if you're using paint that dries up quickly, like acrylic or acrylic gouache? Still not good to do all my highlights, the shadows, etc. Worry about my mixed paint drying up. So acrylic gouache is going to be a little bit different, because you're typically going, I don't know if you're using that on canvas. Most people do it on paper and it soaks in, so it's a little bit harder to keep that wet longer. But let's say just acrylics and I'm working on canvas, that's it. I can keep that wet for as long as I can keep it wet for hours if I need to on a canvas by using a fine mist sprayer, or if you have an airbrush, you can use your airbrush and just airbrush water. You can keep that wet for so long. I don't know, let's see. Yeah, still for that. And then you can glaze. You can let it, let's say it's starting to dry it all the way and do another layer on top, do glazing. And you saw the way that I painted this, where I was shading the darks and using a separate brush that was slightly damp and just smudging out my edges. So I was mixing wet paint up against dry paint, but still having it look wet into wet, so you can get that really smooth blending. But in the paint that you're using will make a difference. I find the Liquitex Basics don't dry as fast. I can get more blending done. It's just, they're easier to work with. Liquitex Soft Body, Liquitex Heavy Body, they dry annoyingly fast. They're much more frustrating to work with, so that's another reason that I like the Liquitex Basics so much. I didn't even realize that Liquitex Basics were drying slower until I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go get the expensive stuff. Everyone says to get the good stuff. So I got the soft body, I got the heavy body, and there are techniques and there are things that those are good for. I'm not saying they're bad paints. I don't like them for my techniques, and I don't like how fast they dry. So yeah, you can still use the spray bottle, the mister, you just have to mist a little bit more often. I just like the basics. Shanna said, how do we learn controlling the amount of paint on the brush? I always have too little or too much. Paint more. I know that is not the answer you want, but when you add the paint, it doesn't do what you wanted, or it's drying too fast, you're getting that rough bumpy look, you know you need to add more. I mean, the more you paint, it's not even something like, I can't give you a formula, because the humidity, like there's a million different factors. There's no formula anyway. You just have to paint more and you'll get a feel for it. And like even with, say here, same studio, same easel, depending on the time of year, is my heater running or is my air conditioning running? I mean, Texas, it's always one or the other. You don't really have a time where that one is not on, but that's going to impact how fast that dries, and I just have to get used to it. So yeah, paint more. The more you paint, you won't even realize it. You'll just be like, oh, this is too much paint, or too little paint, too little water, too much water. You get to where you correct it. You're like, okay, if it was too dry, I know I need to mix a little bit more water in it and go with it. If it's too wet, usually I can look at the brush before I even hit the canvas half the time and go, oh, that's not going to work out for me. But paint more. That really is how that's one of those things you have to get a feel for. I mean, watch videos, watch how my brush is loaded, watch those things, but in the end, you're not going to learn to drive a car without actually getting in the car and driving it more. That's how you're going to get good. It doesn't matter how many books you read. It doesn't matter how many videos you watch. That's what's going to make the difference. Okay, next. Oh my God, I'm going to kill that dog. Not really. I actually like the dog. He's just driving me crazy. I don't know why they are leaving him outside right now. Angela said, Lisa, have you ever tried painting on Ampersand's clayboard? Some people are moving away from canvas since 2020, and I was wondering what your thoughts were on the substrate. I didn't like it. It's been years, but the paint kept soaking into it. Weird. I tried it with oil. I tried it with acrylics. I mean, God, it was probably in the early 2000s that I tried it. Late 90s, early 2000s, probably early 2000s. I probably still have some here. I just didn't like the results that I was getting. Maybe I should try it again because, you know, your techniques change throughout the years. But it was very, I didn't like it. Like, especially the oil paint one. I tried to paint the Crow, Eric Draven. My brain just shut down. It's been a while since I saw that movie. But I was obsessed with that movie, the first one. Not the second or the third. Definitely not the third. Did you know there was a third? Yeah, you shouldn't. Don't bother. But anyway, was obsessed with that in, like, you know, late 90s, that time period. And I tried painting that as an oil painting because of the way that, yeah, so I guess that tells me when it was. It would have been the early 2000s. The way that the oils were like soaking into the board, it wouldn't build right. Like, I did not like it. If I put my own gesso on it, I think it might, because it was pre-gessoed. If I put my own gesso, I'm sure that would have made a difference, but I wasn't a fan. It was too smooth. Like, it didn't work out for me. I never ended up finishing that painting. It was just not like an enjoyable experience. But yeah, I don't know. I think with airbrushing, I would like it. I actually suspect, and this is what I bought them for, airbrushing a background and then doing colored pencil on top. I kind of wanted to try that out. I just never got to it. I have it in my storage thing with my canvases, so I probably should try it. But yeah, I should try it, but I didn't like it when I did. Marie said, when I paint, the paint always seems to glop at the end of the bristles by the wood handle. How do I prevent this? Rinse your brush more. So what you're doing, you're reloading your brush, and it's building up really bad down here. Clean your brush, like completely rinse it out. So you've mixed your color, because I use my brush to mix it. Some people use a palette knife. I feel like you waste way too much paint using a palette knife. So in most cases, oil paint can be an exception, but for acrylics, I use the brush. But when you're mixing and you're stirring, if you're not being careful the way you mix, you will start building up here. Before you load the brush and go to paint, rinse all the paint you can get out of the brush after you've mixed it, and now like load it, reload it, rinse it off. Actually, wipe it off on your paper towel first. So you take your paper towel, pinch it, wipe as much paint off as you can, and then rinse it, and now reload the brush. But you don't want to paint. If that starts building up there, you're not gonna have a good time. So yeah, you need to rinse that brush out, get it clean, more clean more often. Python said, have you noticed specific brands that have had their product decline in quality recently? Nothing that I've used, because, I mean, I don't have to replace most of it. Like, I've replaced polychromos. Derwent Lightfast, not had a problem with those. I'm trying to think of what I've bought recently. My watercolor I've always been happy with. I've not seen anything. The only things I've seen that got even worse, generics are just crap, and they're always looking for a way to cheap out on that, like Hobby Lobby generic, Michael's generic. I don't like them. It is really hard to think with that dog. I don't know if you can hear how loud he is, but in here it's loud. It's like someone is yelling in my face. But nothing that I've used has gotten worse, but the brands that I use are brands that are a little bit more, they care what the artist, like, they care what we think. They care that they're producing a quality product, and stuff like Prismacolor doesn't give a crap. Them, as far as I've heard, someone was posting photos recently. Where was it that I saw? It was even worse. Like, I looked at them like, how did that get through? You have no quality control. Like, it is so bad. But Prismacolor's not an art company. Prismacolor is a tiny little faction. Like, they're in this big well, I don't know what the building is, but, you know, in the grand scheme of the big business that owns Prismacolor, they're like this tiny little side thing. They're not an art supply company. Prismacolor themselves is an art brand, and I'm sure they've got marketing people that care about art and all of that to an extent, but they're not. It's not like Faber-Castell, who all they do is produce art supplies. Derwent, all they do is produce art supplies. Everything depends on them making us happy, whereas Prismacolor is just a tiny little faction of a very large company that produces home cleaning supplies and all kinds of other crap. Like, it is not, they don't care as much, and so they're more likely to cheap out on stuff. But I've not seen it with any of the brands that I've used, but I'm trying to think. I haven't had to replace, like, my Frederick's canvas. Frederick's did sell out to, McPherson's bought them, I believe, is how that worked out. But Those are the same. I've had no complaints over the canvases that I've gotten recently. Polychromos, same. Derwent, same. Like, I have no complaints about any of those, but I don't think I've bought much else. Let's see. Lily said, is Discord on your website? Where are we? On your website or the Patreon website for you. I saw it once, but I can't figure out how or where to get on it. So first you need to download and make your own Discord account, like download Discord and make your account, get signed in. And then when it should link to your Patreon thing, and I need to talk to Patreon. There's got to be a way because I've been giving links and I have to update that link. So somebody remind me later to update that over on Patreon or post a new link. But yeah, it's not on my website. It's on Patreon is where I posted it. But Patreon is supposed to automatically link your Discord, and I don't know how they know when you're logged. Maybe if you're logged into Patreon and you're logged into Discord, it syncs them. I need to find that out. I know when somebody new signs up and they have a Discord, it automatically connects that, but I don't know for those of you who are already there. So I know a lot of people had to get the link, like I sent the link and that did it, but I don't know if that's like, I'm not sure, honestly, how Patreon is doing this. That's not helpful at all, is it? But the link is on Patreon. It's just the old link. So if you sign up for Discord, you download Discord, sign up for that, and Patreon, like when you're logged into both, it isn't syncing, then I'll get that link for you. Let's see. Prismacolors are for normies, basically. Prismacolor. You know, some people, though, who are some of the most amazing colored pencil artists still prefer Prismacolor. It just works. I mean, it's kind of like me and my love for Liquitex Basics. Are they the best by most people's standards? No. But I love them and they work for me. And I think that's what happens with a lot of Prismacolor. With Prismacolor, there was a time when all you could find in the US was Prismacolor. Like we didn't have an easy way to get polychromos. We didn't even know about them until like the internet and things started, like we could get stuff. We had a bigger variety once the internet became available. But Prismacolor used to be good. Like in the 90s, they were good. And so I think a lot of people just got used to them and deal with the problems because they don't realize how much better life can be. Or they tried the other ones, and like me with Liquitex Basics, where I'm like, this just works for me. They were like, Prismas just work for me. I'll deal with them breaking because the wind shifted. So yeah, there are some amazing artists, though, who will only use Prismacolor. Their work is amazing, but my biggest issue with the Prismacolor, so we've got the quality control issue, but also like half of them aren't light fast. And that's another issue. Like even if you're the best artist, you're still using not light fast materials, which sucks. Probably the same as linking Twitch. I don't even know how to do that. Yeah. I wonder if there's like a video on, I need to see if there's a video that explains better how to, because I really don't know how that works. 2 more minutes to bid on the shark painting. Yeah, Lynette said, I found some very, very old Prismacolors I still had, and the quality difference between the then and now is outstandingly sad. Yeah, I have somewhere around here. I have my old ones from high school. So 95 is when I graduated. So they're from like before that. I think 94 is when I probably got these pencils, and it's not the same. What do you think about Lyra? I heard about them the other day. They look all right. I have them. They were, if I remember correctly, I used them once. They're okay. I liked them well enough. I think the majority of them were light fast. I'd have to look. I don't remember. They were a bit on the waxier side, so it took a little bit of getting used to, but they certainly worked. Oh, quietly. From JL, thank you so much for the, nope, Gibson knows. For the super chat. Oh, said the word, yay. Thank you so much, JL. The boys are very grateful. Oh my gosh, so excited. Oh, thank you for snooting on me. Back up, there you go. See, thank you very much. So tasty, huh? Is it good? I know I gave you a big piece there, huh? Yeah, that took a lot of chewing. Okay, go lay down. Lay down. Lay down. Thank you for not being dogs who bark like the neighbor's dog. Go lay down. Lay down. Boys. Down. Slowest race dogs ever. That's what it should say. Instead of hound cam, should say slowest race dogs ever. Lay down, Gibson. Gibson, who is still standing. Seriously? You are smart enough to know what you're supposed to be doing right now. There you go. Let's see. But yeah, the Lyra pencils, they were interesting. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I really liked how they blended, but for the details, was that where it was a bit more challenging because of how waxy they were? It's been years, and I have them. I just don't really remember. Okay, we are at 10 o'clock. Thank you guys so much for joining. If you painted this shark with me, please tag me in it. I would love to see how yours comes out. And let me know what you want to see for next week. Leave in the comments. Well, this will be closing down, but leave in the comments once the video gets edited next, like tomorrow or whatever, if you want to, or on this one, just leave a comment for what you're hoping to see. And are we good? I think we're good. I don't know. Yeah, Lynette said, unless there's a lure, greyhounds are so lazy. Oh, yes. So true. Or a word I'm not going to say. Yeah, thank you guys again for joining. Thank you to the moderators. Links are in the video description. They have art channels here. Definitely should check them out. And Winston barked that entire time. Or, well, last half hour or so. I don't think that my neighbor's paying attention to his text right now. Anyway, thank you again. I'm forgetting something and I don't know what it is. I don't know. Thank you guys. Bye.
Hey, you. Yes, you. I see all your unused art supplies over there. Sign up for art lessons for as little as $4 a month. There are over 300 painting and drawing lessons available when you sign up, and new ones every week. Patreon.com/Lachri.